This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and here's something you don't see every day, an affordable Lenovo ThinkPad. The ThinkPad is the business line. It tends to be expensive, sort of in the spirit of the ThinkPad Edge, if you remember that, but better, because the ThinkPad Edge was always kind of a little cheap and chunky looking. This is actually 3-pound, 13.3-inch Ultrabook. It's not bad looking, and shockingly, it's available in silver or in the usual matte black as well. And currently, Lenovo's prices vary from day to day. They have specials and stuff, but our model sells for just $510. And if you want a well-configured model with a Core i5, 8 gigs of RAM, and a 256 gig SSD, you can get it for around $680 or so, or even potentially less. We're going to look at it now. Well, whoever thought we'd see a silver ThinkPad, right? That's just surprising. It's not bad looking in silver. Of course, you can still get it in matte black, the traditional ThinkPad look if you want. The top is made of aluminum. The rest is ABS and polycarbonate plastic. But it's passed 8 mil spec tests for everything from sand to vibration to extreme temperatures, so it's pretty darn rugged. And as you can see there, we have the traditional ThinkPad keyboard there with the TrackPoint pointer and a pretty decent trackpad on board too. This has Intel Skylake CPUs inside, 6th generation. Dual core, usual Ultrabook CPUs, and you can get a Core i3 or a Core i5. This is not meant to be a high-end line. There is no Core i7 option. It does have SSD, however, M2 SATA 3 interface SSD, and you got 2 RAM slots inside. We'll show you what the internals look like later, and that's pretty nice to have, especially on a budget laptop. Decent Wi-Fi on board, your usual 720p webcam, and plenty of ports, including the first ThinkPad to have a USB-C port. This may be, relatively speaking for ThinkPads, a budget laptop, but it's got a pretty competent set of ports on board for a 13.3-inch Ultrabook that isn't too thick. It's about 3/4 of an inch thick, or 19.1 millimeters. And on this side, you can see we have our full-size SD card slot, the combo audio jack, 2 USB 3.0 ports, full-size HDMI, and USB-C, the first ThinkPad with USB-C. Who would ever thought it would be the affordable model, right? It's USB-C 3.1 Gen 1. This is not Thunderbolt 3, but it can handle things like DisplayPort out with a dongle adapter, so that makes us not complain that it doesn't have a DisplayPort on it as well. And on the left side, this is where you plug in the power adapter. It comes with a standard 45-watt compact power adapter, the usual Lenovo ThinkPad style one. This is a OneLink Plus dock connector. The OneLink Plus dock is $179. It adds additional USB 3.0 ports, Ethernet, VGA, and more. And here we have a third USB 3.0 port, obviously some ventilation over here, and on the bottom side there's ample ventilation. Not that it needs a whole heck of a lot of ventilation here, since we have 15-watt dual-core CPUs, Core i3 and Core i5, like I said. And in fact, we have the base model here. This is the one that's currently selling for $510 on Lenovo's website. It has a 2.1 gigahertz Core i3-6100U CPU, 4 gigs of DDR4 RAM. That's right, DDR4. We don't see that so much in Skylake Ultrabook so far. And 128 gig SSD. That's a SATA 3 interface with an M.2 connector. There is no PCIe SSD option on this for faster SSDs. And we'll show you inside in a minute. Now, this is really very upgradable. It's nice to see 2 RAM slots these days on an Ultrabook. Easily accessible Wi-Fi card, easily accessible M.2 slot, and you can, of course, replace the battery. However, taking this apart is a little bit more annoying because we have these little rubber plugs right here and lots of plastic clips. We'll talk about that more now. And by the way, this right here is one of the 2 stereo speaker slits, and audio isn't bad on it at all. Lately, Lenovo's been doing a good job with audio. It's not going to rock your world with bass, but it's adequate enough sounding, and volume is quite good. So here's what it looks like with the cover off. By the way, taking the cover off, well, it has the plastic clips from hell. Here's the cover. There are lots of little plastic clips all around the edge of the chassis, so you really want an opening or pry tool, if you can, to make it easier to get off. Also, 3 of the screws are hidden, the front screws, under little rubber sticky covers that are really hard to pull off, these little rubber sticky guys, because the sticky stuff is so sticky. So you might have to use a little judicious force just to yank those little buggers out of the hole. to unscrew it. Just standard Phillips head screws happily. So inside here we have RAM. We have a 4 gig model, so there's one 4 gig module here. Here's another RAM slot right here. So 2 total. You can order it with up to 16 gigs of RAM, like I said, so they could put an 8 gig and an 8 gig in there, for example. This is your M.2 SSD. It is SATA 3 interface. It's pretty accessible for upgrades if you wish to upgrade it. Here is your Intel 8260 Wi-Fi 802.11 AC card with Bluetooth 4.1. And obviously there is the battery. So if you do need to replace the battery a couple of years from now, you can actually open it up and access the battery, which is true of most laptops. Now that laptops don't have those handy-dandy release latches that let you pop it right out, you do have to open them up to get to the battery. Fan, obviously, over here for cooling our CPU. And the stereo speakers are right here. These are the drivers. Those of you who are interested in this laptop because you love ThinkPad keyboards, that's understandable. And this may be a budget model, but it's every bit of ThinkPad keyboard. Very ergonomic, the usual smile-shaped keys, slightly curved in so it feels very good. Nice key travel on here, good damping. It's quiet when you type. Excellent keyboard up to the ThinkPad standard. And because this isn't an ultra skinny laptop, we have a decent amount of key travel here. Of course, we have the TrackPoint pointer right there for those of you who like that, and dedicated buttons for it up top above the Elan Trackpad, which has some basic ThinkPad settings if you go to the mouse control panel there. Not as full-featured as on some of the higher-end ThinkPads, but all the basic settings are there, and it's actually a pretty decent trackpad. The keyboard isn't backlit though, so sorry about that. You can hit FN plus spacebar until the cows come home and nothing is going to happen here because there is no backlighting. There's only one display option on this, and it's a full HD 1920 by 1080 IPS display with decent viewing angles. Again, IPS displays come in various qualities, and something this inexpensive is not going to have one with stupendous lateral viewing angles. It's decent. Lenovo claims 220 nits of brightness. Our Spider Pro 4 colorimeter measured 231 nits, so a little bit brighter than that. In other words, it's okay for indoor use, especially because it's a matte screen, so you're not going to be fighting glare, but this is not a zingy, super bright display. It is non-touch. There is no touchscreen option either. Black level at max brightness is 0.47, that's fine, that's decent. Contrast is 500 to 1, that's okay, certainly in this price range. White point is 6,900 degrees Kelvin, which is pretty close to the ideal, around 6,600, not as high as some other laptops on the market. Color saturation, not a strong point here, but then you could probably guess it in this price range. Right here you can see we have 66% of sRGB. Now, if you're looking at something closer to $1,000, you'll get 100%, but then this isn't nearly that price, is it? And it does 49% of Adobe RGB, so this is not the product for professional photo and video editors. Now, we have the base Core i3 model, so we're not going to get the highest benchmark numbers here. We have just 4 gigs of RAM. As you can see here, Geekbench 3, 2396 for the single core and 5215 for the multi-core. Now, if you go up to the Core i5, it's not that much more money. Actually, Lenovo's upcharges for at least the lower-end Core i5. They have 2 different Core i5s available. Adds about $70 or so, and you'll get better numbers. And I would expect to see about 6,600 for the dual-core number if you do get the Core i5. By the way, if you want to get this configured a little bit more powerfully, say you want to get that Core i5-6200U, 8 gigs of RAM and a 256 gig SSD, I think it's worth the $680 versus getting this base model here. But then if you're on a keen budget, you're on a keen budget. On our PC Mark 8 Home Accelerated test, it scored 2,888, and usually we see around 3,000 or so for something with a Core i5. Not bad numbers. And again, for a SATA 3 SSD, it's not the super fast kind of SSD. These are decent enough numbers. For W Prime, it computed pi in a not terribly impressive 20.75 seconds versus about 16 for some of the Core i5 and Core i7 Ultrabooks that we've reviewed. But again, you can order this with different configurations if you need a little bit more speed, and that is not bad at all. It's certainly a capable everyday machine for doing MS Office productivity work, streaming full HD video. It's even fine for doing photo editing. I mean, again, this is not the laptop for a professional photo editor who's going to be really going at it crazy with Lightroom or something, because the color spectrum just isn't that good on it. But it's fine for casual use to do that, and it's even adequate for doing some home movies, video editing, that sort of thing. It's not a gaming laptop. It is not meant for mega number crunching or anything like that. So battery life, good news here. It has a 3-cell 42 watt-hour battery, which that's about average capacity for a 13-inch Ultrabook, honestly, but particularly with the Core i3 CPU, the least demanding among Intel Core CPUs and Intel HD 520 graphics, there is no dedicated graphics option here. We actually were impressed with battery life that verged 9 hours with productivity use and streaming video. If you're going to be doing something more demanding like code compiling or editing video, you'll get shorter run times, but that was with the display set to 50% brightness, which is really too dim, honestly, because this is not that bright a display, at least for my taste. You might feel differently about that. So if you do max out that brightness, probably you're looking at more like 8 hours, maybe even 7.5. But I would say realistically about 8 hours use if you're going with a higher brightness setting. And good job, Lenovo, here. Hey, when it doesn't have to be that skinny, they have room for a decent battery. And here's the charger, which again is Lenovo's standard 45-watt charger. Plenty of cord length on there. So that's the Lenovo ThinkPad 13. It's available now. Again, very affordable for a ThinkPad for a business laptop. Still passes mil-spec ruggedness tests. You're not going to get all the nice features that you would on a higher-end ThinkPad, like a backlit keyboard, a higher resolution display, or a touchscreen option on it. But if you're just looking for something with a great keyboard, good performance, just fine cooling, it's a very competent laptop. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to visit our website for the full written review and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos.